Day 5 of Adrian Gonzales trial wrapped up on Monday, and here's what happened. It's a great day for a great day. My name is Sydney Rushing. I'm a criminal defense attorney in the state of Michigan. Now let's talk about it. Morning started off with witness number 15, Terry Snyder, being called to the stand. Now he's a Texas Ranger, and he works as part of the crime scene investigation group. He arrived later in the afternoon on the day of the incident. He was assigned to help identify the victims in room 111 and 112. They identified many based on their clothing or by the class roster that was within the classroom. The following day, he was tasked with helping to identify and mark metal projectile casings that were in the hallways. Photos were introduced of the inside of the school. Some weren't shown on the live stream because of the graphic nature of them. They discussed the shell casings they found, and some of them came from law enforcement while others belonged to the monster. On cross-examination, he was asked whether it would have made a difference if the west door, which is the door that the monster came in, was locked. And Snyder responded, obviously, yes. They talked about the fatal funnel again and how it's an extremely dangerous situation that could apply to an open doorway, a stairwell, and also a hallway. He was hypothetically asked if anyone entering the school was entering a fatal funnel, and he said yes. On redirect, he confirmed that they don't discharge metal projectiles without knowing and identifying their target. They don't just discharge to discharge. He explained how you identify your target. He said you don't discharge unless you know where it's coming from. The follow-up question was, so you just stand where you are? And he responded about identifying the target and not exactly answering the question. He was asked if you just take your time to find where the incident originated or if you take immediate action. He responded with, you take tactical approach to where the incidents occurred. He also said that time is of the essence in an active pew-pew situation. When asked if the officer should do if he can't see the person discharging the metal projectiles, he responded, they should run to the pew-pewing where they tactically approach to where the pew-pewing is occurring. On recross, he said he was there 3 days before he was rotated out. Some more photos were introduced. He was asked about tactically moving during an active situation and that he was familiar with slicing the pie. Slicing the pie is basically a military tactic that is used when it's to clear a corner. You kind of, go a little bit, go a little bit, go a little bit more, slicing the pie. Snyder said he was not aware that Gonzales entered the fatal funnel. After a short redirect, the witness was excused and there was a break for the jurors. Witness number 16, Scott Swick, was called to the stand. He's a Ranger. He responded to the scene and was tasked with searching room 112. Some photos were entered into evidence. He found more than 30 casings in room 112. He believes that the monster changed magazines while in the room. Then there was a lunch break. On cross-examination, they discussed training and how some Rangers go to additional, more advanced training. They all start with the same basic training, but then they can branch off into different things with more training. He has not responded to an active pew-pew situation, but he has investigated mass casualty events. They discussed the tactical way to approach a fatal funnel. An orange practice pew-pew was used to demonstrate this for the jury, and demonstrations always help juries understand what's going on and how this works. They discussed how your finger on the trigger could cause it to discharge at any time, and as you tactically enter a situation, you have to make sure that you and others are safe, and an accidental discharge could happen under pressure. They discuss the difference between concealment and cover. Concealment is where you hide behind an object, but it may not stop the projectile. Where cover is, you're hiding behind an object and you would expect it to potentially stop a projectile. Another demonstration was done. LaHood hid behind the poster boards and had Swick say that he was concealed under that circumstances, not covered. And then there was another demonstration with the orange prop pew-pew showing and explaining what slicing the pie tactic is. There was lots of back and forth between redirect and recross. On recross, Swick was asked if the door was locked, would he have stopped that animal from entering the school? Swick responded that if the door was locked, the officer may have not got in through that door, but he can't speak to any other doors that may have been unlocked. Witness number 17, Roberto Montavlo, is called to stand. Now, he's a Ranger. He was dispatched to Robb Elementary, and he arrived later in the afternoon on the day of the incident. While en route to the school, he was asked to go to the hospital in Uvalde and assist another Ranger. At the hospital, he helped identify some of the victims. He returned to the school 1 week after the incident to collect some items, one of them being the Hellfire trigger snap-on device that we talked about earlier, and a few spent cartridge casings. Then there was a break for the jury. And witness number 18 was called to the stand, and this was Jim Claveman. He's a former Uvalde CISD electronics technician and security coordinator. He was on the way to the car inspection station when he had to give right away to a few emergency vehicles, and he thought maybe there was another bailout situation, as those had been happening more often in the area. Once he arrived at the car inspection station, he turned on his district radio, and that's when he realized there was a more serious problem. The defense just thanked him for his work that day, and he was excused. Prosecutors then played the hallway video of the incident to jurors. The 911 call from Amelia Marin was also played. She testified during week 1. Then witness number 19, Mr. Reyes, was called to the stand. Now, he's a former 4th grade teacher at Robb Elementary. He taught in room 111, which was joined together with room 112. After the award ceremony, they went to the classroom and resumed what they were doing prior to the program. The kids were watching a movie with the lights off, and he was entering grades into the computer. He heard a loud noise but didn't recognize it at the time. He said even when it was closer, he still wasn't sure what the sound was. He then looked at the wall that that splits between 112 and 111, and he kind of saw stuff like falling out of it. And then a student asked what was going on, and he told him he didn't know, and they entered into their lockdown location. He then went to hide himself, and when he looked at the door, he saw the monster. He described it as a black shadow holding a pew-pew. He was first hit in his left arm, and then he fell to the ground, and then the monster came around and went after the kids. He heard a student in room 112 call out for help saying, "Officer, come in here, we're in here." And then he heard more pew-pewing, and then he never heard that student's voice again. The monster came back and taunted him. He got some of his blood and splashed it on his face. He had closed his eyes at the time because he wanted him to think that he was already unalive at that point. He was then shot in his back. He then heard the door open and a lot of pew-pewing exchanging. He believes that he was rescued by a Border Patrol agent. They said, "Get up if you can," or "Talk if you can talk," and he said that he was alive, and they pulled him from the room. None of the students in room 111 survived. Then there were some pictures of the victims introduced. And then on cross-examination, he confirmed that the door on the east side of campus was unlocked and unknowingly unlocked, and that was due to like the rotations. He didn't know that both rooms 111 and 112 were unlocked. He confirmed that it was his responsibility to make sure that room 111 was locked. He said he reported a malfunctioning door to the principal and secretary prior to this incident date. The Raptor system, they talked about that as well, and how it's the school app that they use, and it did not alert them that there was a pew-pewer on campus. When Reyes was told during grand jury testimony that the other teachers were trying to lock their door in room 112, he said, "I never said that." And when given his grand jury testimony transcript to refresh his memory, he said he did in fact say that. And then that was the end of day 5, and the jurors were released for the day. Thank you for being here, and thank you for following along. And here's the question of the day. Again, do you think that they are focusing way too much on what the monster did versus what Officer Gonzales is alleged to have done? I think they're focusing maybe a little too much on that. Let me know what you think in the comments.